I'm an independent Republican here to ask for support from your group to represent you in the upcoming election. Alas, I was short by about 9 signatures, so did not qualify the Republican primary ballot. And so, first, you don't succeed, you try again. And so, I'm trying again and asking your support for my candidacy. My background is in economics and banking. I work as a security guard, other odd jobs in the city to make ends meet. I ran Mr. LaRouche's presidential campaign in 2004. I ran a number of banking campaigns in Congress to deal with the mortgage crisis between 2005 and 2007. So to some people, it was obvious, including myself, that the crisis was coming. And I did my best to utilize our features of representative democracy to ask our elected officials to preempt the problem. Alas, the corruption is too deep, the thinking is too small, and the courage is not there, which is why we were not able to overcome some of the problems that allowed the banking system to explode in 2007, 2008, up till now. So I am running to resolve the economic crisis, and I think the solutions are very simple. My orientation is to rebuild and create jobs right away. You do one and the other. The theme of the campaign that I've chosen, which I think is adequate for our times, is Prometheus, the American Promethean. I hope Ridley Scott this weekend doesn't butcher the idea of the story too much. But anyway, you can enjoy that in the movie theater. But the idea of creative discovery is the backbone of the American system. The ability to create wealth, to build society, to build roads, to build infrastructure. That has what, in the long term, has enabled our country to survive. And often, our experience has been the conquering of new frontiers. And as we've done that, we've created a plenum of wealth for our people and our posterity. So my orientation now is to encourage you guys to pick what frontier you want to conquer, and to reorganize the banking system to be in accord with this project to build for the future. Nuclear power, NASA. I noticed the patron saint of NASA is watching our deliberations today. I didn't realize that John Kennedy was beautified. But nonetheless, he's watching right there. So maybe that in spirit will color our discussions. Beyond that, constitutional law, civil liberties. Yes, I'm for civil liberties. It's obvious. Constitutional government, what is that? The document is there. Can we make it work is the question. And I'm for all those things. There are a lot of nuances beyond the Glass-Steagall Act and specifics that I've highlighted on the website, which will require some deliberation. But my idea is we have to pick an order of battle, like you're fighting a war. There are many battlefields to choose from. And if you choose the wrong one, you lose the whole war. So my point is you have to be narrow in the approach to this thing. You must have the Glass-Steagall Act. You must reorganize the banking system. If you do not, you're kidding yourself. So I look forward to all of the questions. There's much more detail to share. Let's go for it.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Okay, I'll open it.
Our guests, do we have new guests?
Yes, we have new guests.
He knows about it.
All right. Do you want to respond to that? It's kind of entitled since it took some time.
No.
Okay. Questions from the audience?
Yes, when you were vetted by our group there, Mr. Mourino, you advocated a number of positions that seem to involve government intervention in the economy, which seems to be generally contrary to libertarian thought. Would you care to expound upon that, please?
Article 1, Section 8 is constitutional. It's a power of the Congress. Money is a power of our federal government, and it was designed as such. The question for us to answer is how do we want it utilized? We want it utilized to improve our economy, to improve the powers of labor, so that our disposable income is useful both for our basic needs and other things that are on top of survival. All right, so in our history, there have been numerous times when the idea of the harmony of interest between public good, the general welfare, and private individual concerns has been championed. I discussed those briefly on the website with allusions to Kennedy's administration, Franklin Roosevelt's, Lincoln's, John Quincy Adams, and others earlier that begin with Hamilton. The times changed. The vehicles by which long-term credit, protective tariffs, and other things that are utilized to build up industry and economy change. But I think the principle is very simple. You need to have money, credit, produced and oriented to improve the power labor of the average American. And I think that in Congress, there's a lot of ignorance on that. There is some traction vis-a-vis the Glass-Steagall Act, which is constitutional. Within the Libertarian camp, it's mixed. There are a number of Libertarian candidates for Congress, speculative throughout the country, who agree with the Glass-Steagall Act. There are others who disagree, and who are more of the Austrian school of economics. I am not a proponent of the Austrian school. I think it's European imperialism. That's complicated. Beg pardon?
That's time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. You want to respond?
Bretton Woods system, the gold standard reserve system. Pick your precious metal. It's a standard reserve used by sovereigns to exchange and balance accounts. And credit is printed, money is printed for the benefit of the citizenry. It's that simple.
I am for the Austrian theory of economics, so.
No response. Okay. Mark?
The last two presidents have taken a very aggressive position with respect to individuals who want to come to this country and work, raise families, participate in American society. They're building fences. They're, Obama's deporting entire towns back to Guatemala, etc. So I'd like to know from each of you gentlemen your position on immigration, and if you think that the United States should be blocking immigration, where in the Constitution it says that.
Okay. I'm going to go first. You first on.
Okay.
1 minute.
Okay, the right way to go with immigration is, in my opinion, I don't know about you guys, but the government encourage illegal immigration through amnesty laws, through birthright citizenship, through the welfare state. If you get rid of the welfare state, and you get rid of the birthright citizenship, and you get rid of the amnesty and this free, and force the states to give free education and free health care to these illegal immigrants. Now, I'm not saying that I'm for immigrants to come into this country. I am for immigrants. My grandfather was an immigrant. I think immigrants make this country great. They make it diverse. They make it who it is today. But they do have to come over here legally. They do have to work within the system, and they do have to respect the Constitution. And when you come here to become a citizen, you have to learn English. I am for the English language being the language of this country, and you have to learn the principles of the Constitution. That is why, one of the reasons why you have to be an American citizen, a born here American citizen, in order to be president. Because those type of people understand the Constitution.
1 minute, Paul.
We are a nation of immigrants. And my understanding of the history of the country is that the design was you have an industrial economy, a large farming base, to employ increasing amounts of people. And they were invited here and came here in droves to work. Give us, you're tired, you're poor, you're hungry. That's the greeting of the Statue of Liberty. We should go back to that. But in order to maintain that idea, you need to have an industrial base. You need to have the United States producing farm equipment and farm food at the order of magnitude that was the case prior to 1971. Without those instruments, the whole design falls upon itself. And you can see now with the way the immigrant population is being utilized. By some people, you have slave labor using that. By other people, they end up becoming a cost because of the hospital costs and the care and so on. So my point is you want to solve the problem, address the economic crisis, rebuild the industry, go with some of the plans we have to increase fresh water production, the North American water and power lines, NASA, nuclear power, heavy industry. You have to design a process that you take people, whether they're immigrants or regular citizens,
Next time. I'll give you 1 second to finish.
and improve their skills to the point where they become honest citizens. It's a process. One other thing, if I don't mind mentioning, Peter King is the fellow we're challenging here. What is his orientation? He doesn't care about liberty. He's demonizing these things. And he wants to have a police state.
30-second rebuttal, and I'll take that from you. Rebuttal. 30 seconds. Okay. You want 30 seconds to follow up?
Yeah, I was just trying to say that you have the politics of power and fear coming out of the guy who's supposed to represent us in Congress. We're scared about immigrants. We're scared about the war on terror. This guy is crazy because he wants to hold the power and represent a police state. More police. I like police, but we don't need to have our politics isolated. So are you an enemy or a friend? We need to concentrate on what's required to rebuild the physical economy.
Thank you.
I actually think, you're going to take my 30 seconds now?
I'll give you 10.
Okay. I actually think that if you discourage or lead by discouraging illegal immigration, you're going to allow for immigration to come, legal immigration back into this country.
Okay.
Other questions from the audience?
Mr. Weaver.
You want, Mr. Mourino, you're talking about taking my tax dollars and using it to build up nuclear power and all these other wonderful things. Currently, my tax dollars are being taken to ship companies and jobs to other countries. My tax dollars are being used to blow up people in Pakistan who have nothing to do with threats to this country. they use to help fund the civil war in Syria, funding the terrorists. What are you gonna do to make sure that if you take my tax dollars, it doesn't end up killing someone somewhere else that I've never heard of before?
First part, let's agree on some of those programs. Do we agree on Nassau? Do we agree on the North American water power lines? Do we want to replace our bridges and upgrade our infrastructure? If the answer is yes, good. Imperialism. Are we going to destroy the British Commonwealth? We have a problem in the national politics here where a lot of our people have sold us out to the power of oligarchy. You want proof of it? Alan Greenspan is knighted. That's unconstitutional. Look at the rest of the people who are sycophants to oligarchic imperial power. You want to defeat them? I'm for it. That's why I'm asking for your support to destroy people. And Mr. King, let's hold that standard. Because right now his politics are to back up the war on terror. Let's defeat that. Let's go beyond the war on terror. It's a waste of time. It's a nightmare. You want to destroy the boogeymen? You can't. All right? We had a Cold War the last 8 years. We had a real problem. ICBM, weapons, and so on, right? That's a real problem. Not underwear bombing. Let's give you a break, right? Okay. So let's make our standards precise. What do we agree on? What do we want to build? Is it viable? And then let's stick to that, and then we'll resolve the imperialism as we go.
It wasn't until World War II that we had a standing army that was always existed. We cannot have a standing army in this country. There's no need for it. What you have is this military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned against. What you have is these big companies like KBR and Halliburton that encourage politicians and encourage the system where the government is going to fund this. We don't need to fund this. We don't need to have a standing army. We do not need to have all these bases all over the globe. We need to have our troops back here and worry about this country here, not worry about all the countries over there. In my personal opinion, all these Arab Springs are CIA run. Okay, and that's another thing that I want to get rid of is the CIA. Okay, the idea that we have to support the destabilization process in Syria. If they want to replace their leader over there, that's their problem over there. We do not need to interfere in their politics.
30 seconds, Paul.
Yeah, I would say that it's a little more complicated dealing with the military because you have a split in the military between patriots and opportunists. And so I find the rhetoric of pulling all the troops out all over the place to be unhelpful. I am opposed to the war. I helped to write the impeachment papers for Dick Cheney's removal with Dennis Kucinich. So I know who these people are. I know who the neocons are. Congressman King may as well be a neocon, even though he has certain differences. He doesn't lie willfully. He lies through ignorance. All right, so my contribution is that we be a little more precise in how we go about this process of changing the war policy.
I think the militia, the individual militias in each county and in each state is responsible for the personal well-being of the communities. People should take it upon themselves to take care of their own communities. That's the way it works.
Okay. Questions further? Blade, you had a question.
I'd just like to know if the candidates have any questions they'd like to ask each other.
Oh, other questions you would like to ask each other?
Perhaps you should take the member questions before that.
Yeah.
I have-
Okay, well, hold on, let's not burn time. You had a question, then you.
Yeah, there's a rising tide of stealth, gun control. That's what guns and control is not mentioned at all, but you just expand everything being a felony. 1,400 pages of the tax code, for example. So now you have 80% of all people who've been denied the right to own their arms, not for a year or a decade, but for the rest of their life. No way of getting it back. Convicted under the tax code. What are you going to do to roll back stealth gun control and get people the right to own their arms, never convicted of violence?
Okay, 1 minute, you will.
Okay. First of all, I'm against the UN. I need to pull out of the UN. The assault weapons ban needs to be, first, when you pull out of the UN, the assault weapons ban, the UN treaty on the small arms treaty is unconstitutional. The assault weapons ban needs to be overturned. The Brady bill needs to be overturned. We need to ensure that the Second Amendment is not infringed upon. The Second Amendment is a right back to common law that is guaranteed to every single American, okay? This do not fly, do not buy list is ridiculous. You have no way to knowing you're on the list, and no way to knowing why you're on the list, and no way to get off the list. It's ridiculous. Every American has the right to own and bear arms, okay? I do not have a pistol permit because I think that I have the right to own a pistol, and I don't want to spend $300 for a permission slip for a right that I already have. Plenty of rights.
I support the Second Amendment, period, but I also support the First Amendment. In other words, if you want to lead a civil war, go right ahead. The reason why I'm running is because we have to cut the problems off at the head of the river, the beginning. It's a banking crisis. If we do not resolve the banking crisis, the people who have power will go for tyranny and dictatorship. So I'm here today to say, look, you want to avoid that? Solve the problem now by reorganizing the banking system, and the law is there in Congress. Weapons, if we go that far, it's going to be a different universe, and I don't know if we can escape from barbarism. But I am not happy with what is going on, taking away our rights for both weapons use and also civil liberties. Agenda 21, BAE systems, the UN, let's go for that in a second. But you have power, financial power, looking to create an oligarchic system where you have slaves and servants. And slowly but surely, like the frog in the kettle, they're turning up the heat to take everything away. All right, let's address that at the core first. And lastly, the other element was you mentioned the UN. If I could just say specifically, the UN was created. The UN was created as an area for dialogue to avoid world war. That's all it is. And you have numbskulls who are using an instrument to create world government. I'm opposed to those people, but the instrument was created for something different. Okay.
When the people fear the government, you have tyranny. When the people fear the government, you have tyranny. When the government fears the people, you have freedom. You have liberty. Okay? In all the countries throughout history, when they've taken away the Second Amendment from the people, you've had outright genocide at some point. And you've had arrest of citizens, and that's why we have FEMA camps in this country. And that's their plan.
Cut to the chase. If you want to save the Constitution, you have to impeach President Obama. It's that simple. Fish stinks from the head. So you attack it at the head.
Okay. I'm just going to say, remind the candidates, please respect the 10-second warning when I show it.
I had a question.
Yes,
I had a question
and then
about
your
the
next
North
one.
American Water and Power Alliance you mentioned.
Speak up, please.
I had a question about the North American Water and Power Alliance that you mentioned.
Yeah.
When I read about it, it looks more like an actual government thing when I read about it, and it looks like it's coordinated with North and South America, from what I'm reading. Could you explain it?
Sure. The idea that Kennedy had in the 60s was to address water problems that they were forecasting that we would be hitting today. And the idea was to move water from the source of the Yukon to McKinsey system about 20% of it south. And the great debate at the time was, well, we need to have a treaty association with Canada on this sort of thing, because the water is going to be crossing borders, both the Alaska-Canada border and the Canada-US border. The private firm involved in the engineering specifications is Parsons. So the idea was you have government policy being debated and voted upon. It failed by one vote. And the reason why it failed was because of the Vietnam War. The sentiment was, we have a priority to fight the war in Vietnam, we're going to put this development aside.
Does this coordinate, though, with what the federal government's looking to do, is increase the fluoridation of water? Does that?
I would say no. My view of the project and my understanding of the principle in mind is that when you're dealing with water resources, it is the bottleneck to any kind of development, municipal, industrial, city building. And you need to have lots more of it to expand population and the living standards of people. That's my general say. I'm sure there are numbskulls who would like to pervert it in ways that
Ken, did you say something about water fluoridation?
I'm asking, like, would they include that as part of it? Because whoever funds this is going to be able to make their own kind of rules for this kind of thing.
Right.
And I'm wondering, where's the main funding going to come from?
Congress.
So it is going to be a government thing.
It has to be.
Okay,
It's too big.
Mr. Rini is entitled to some time.
Okay, I'm sorry. So go ahead.
Okay. I can't comment too much about that. I don't know enough about the Power Authority, but I will tell you that they sound like a lot of trying to undermine our sovereignty, trying to, through the North American Union, or it sounds like that's what you're getting at, between where we're gonna have water discussions and cross-border police and different issues where Canada and Mexico are gonna be cooperating with the United States. And that's a direct violation of our sovereignty. We have to take care of our own issue. And I'm against water fluoridation. It's Hitler fluoridated the Jewish people.
10 seconds?
We can have like 20.
It's not that scary. The purpose of government is to do the good. So Benjamin Franklin left us, and we're finding that we're having trouble doing that for a number of reasons. Bear in mind the author of the NWAPA, the author of the space program, was assassinated. That has a certain traumatic effect culturally on the population. What I'm trying to fight for is the development of our civilization, the improvement of our living standard, and development of fresh water resources is critical in that.
You want some?
Thank you.
We have 20 minutes and change left over, so let's try to keep this moving along. I want to give the candidates some time to close and ask questions. Jim?
If this is for both of them to answer, if you get our okay, I want to know, do you belong to any local community organizations? Do you have an organization to help get signatures to get on the ballot? Two things. Community organizations, do you have organizations to get involved?
To tell you the truth, this is my first venture into politics. I don't have a huge base to collect signatures. I have my friends, I have my family, I have you guys, if I get the nomination. I do have, I'm not the richest guy in the world, but I do have money, I do have, I accept donations from my family and from my community. I do have a lot of businesses that I associate with, that I can accept donations for. And I would try my best.
Rotary Society, Volunteer Fire, anything like that?
I used to belong to the volunteer fire department. I do have a lot of friends that are still in the volunteer fire department in Massapequa, Greenwich. So I do have connections there. In terms of local community, I don't have any. I do belong to the NRA. I belong to the Gun Owners of America with Larry Pratt.
I have a small grouping of friends and supporters, and I've spoken at many of the local chambers of commerce, attempting to recruit some of these business leaders who understand how commercial banking used to work as the basis for my candidacy. And beyond that, it's people like me. You should know that with the Republican primary, I raised about $3 grand on my own steam, internet contributions, and just general support, but there was about 10 people who were successful in getting the amount of signatures we had. And it's kind of a miracle we're only 9 short. But that shows you what you can do with the right ideas and the right kind of stamina. I'm obviously trying to expand that, which is why I'm here, talking to all of you.
I don't think that requires a rebuttal. Other questions from the audience? Okay.
Quick question.
What?
9 short signatures due to challenges or not selecting enough?
You know, when you're petitioning, you have people who say that they're one thing and they're actually another, they haven't voted in forever.
Okay.
And that's, I think, what it was.
We got 18 minutes left, so I'd like you candidates to see if there's questions you have for each other. Dan, I'll let you go first, since you were first there. If there's a question you want to ask me something.
What is,
I'll give you each 2 minutes or more to respond.
what is your opinion on the statism and the government to interfere on individual liberties and issues?
Well, the Constitution is clear. The Constitution is clear. There are certain responsibilities that the federal government has, and everything else is up to the state. And we have now a situation where the government, the federal government, is overreaching its bounds, trying to condition us to accept all kinds of things. That is, in my view, backwards. They're telling us we can't buy big gulps. I mean, give me a break. So the point is to solve the problem at the beginning and allow the states to do the necessary functions that they do, vis-a-vis tax code, business code, education, electoral politics. Almost everything is handled in the minutiae by the state, as far as I understand it. And instead of dealing with the big issues at the federal level, we have some numbskulls in there who, because of power and money, are trying to usurp all of the powers that the states have. So I think the separation is clear.
Okay.
You have a question?
Yes, how are we gonna create jobs?
I think the job creation is left to the private sector. If you discourage, you get constantly interfering and meddling with the economy and the free market, and you pay and you use taxpayer money to fund Chevy and GM's plans to go overseas. If you get rid of all of that, you allow the free market to operate the way it is, and you allow small business to operate the way it is, you lower the corporate tax rate, and you allow for people to operate freely of government interference, you will see a large, substantial increase in the hirings of the small businesses, which are responsible for at least 80% of the jobs in this country.
You can have some time.
Is Travelers Insurance the free market? Is Goldman Sachs the free market? Is Walmart the free market? I understand what you mean by competition and so on, but in my view, the term the free market is much abused. Yes, I'm for competition, but the reality is we have a mixed system. And the reason why I focused on like the programs in mind, I think that's the way to go, the harmony of interest. Travelers Insurance, a private company, is responsible for taking down the banking laws that created the current crisis. So my faith is not as thorough as yours in the free market system. As a blanket statement that all private companies are
Would you
trustworthy.
like to respond to that, Dan?
I'm not exactly sure what you're getting at, but if you allow the market to operate freely and you allow interest rate, if you allow the small business to operate free of government control, you will see that people will start to venture and start to buy things from small businesses.
10 seconds.
Yeah.
BAE Systems is a private company that bought out, it's a British company that bought up an American arms manufacturer. And they're the ones pushing Agenda 21 in Huntington. Again, I think we have to be a little more specific.
You want to respond on that?
I don't know.
It sounds like this is going deeper. Do you want to continue asking questions on that?
I would just reference on the website, my campaign website, under the discussion of the Glass-Steagall Act, I try to convey what I think the concept ought to be, or the standard we have to deal with private companies and public entities.
You have a question? Yes.
Considering you're for active involvement in the government economy, would you be for bailouts?
No. No.
So would you enforce the policy that the government must ensure any money lost from private investors and returns?
Are you talking about FDIC insurance?
Yes. Do you not
I
believe-
think it's a small issue, and because, look, I'll repeat it again, the whole bank system is broken. What does that mean? Everything within the system is busted. All the features that we have do not function. For example, the FDIC insurance, as far as I understand, it was simply a feature set up to give people some degree of faith and credit that the bank they had, or they're supposed to have, would be there tomorrow. All right, obviously, we have no faith in the federal government and in our banking system. So my point is, all right, let's fix it at the source. And if it is necessary to have certain features that encourage specific types of investments, let's agree on what type of investments and what we want to build. That's why I mentioned NASA, NAWAPA, and high-tech goods production. I think that those are things that Americans do best. That's where our advantages are.
Businesses that have bad practices have to fail. That's just the way it is. I use for an example, if you had a small town and there was one restaurant in the town, and they had a big carnival come, and then this carnival was going to stay around for a year, and because of all the influx of the people, this restaurateur opened up a second restaurant in a small town, and he made plenty of money from the two restaurants because of all the influx of people from the carnival, okay? Now, when the carnival left, that second restaurant went out of business, but a lot of people were employed by the second restaurant. So should the town come in and say, all right, because of the interest of employment, we should prop up the second restaurant and give loans to this restaurateur for owning this restaurant? The answer is no, because it's doomed to fail no matter what, because you're not going to have enough people going to small businesses and to go into the restaurant. The second, the FDIC is responsible for bad practices. You can't encourage bad banking practices.
Would you like to respond?
Yes, I guess the question to the audience is, do you believe the banking system is still functioning? And should we live with a dead corpse?
No.
Or is it working? I don't know what your answers are. My answer is it is broken and has to be reorganized with American principles in mind. That will work. And in my view, that's the Glass-Steagall Act. We'll start with that, then we can discuss how you want to feature proper banking policy for commercial investments, for real estate investments. Bear in mind, the wealth of this area used to be backed by Grumman, an industrial firm, an aerospace firm. People loved to work there. That's why they were productively employed in building useful things. What replaced it? Real estate speculation, landlords, gambling. Forget the question.
You want 30 seconds?
Sure. If I can go back to the FDIC allows for banks to get away with bad loans and it distorts. It doesn't allow for the citizen to take it upon himself to say that this bank is not a good bank. I should not bank with this bank. Instead, they are allowed to be lazy. They say, I'm going to put money into this bank, and no matter what, I'm going to get my money back. By the way, the FDIC pays you back in 99 years.
All right. Well, we've got 10 minutes left, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to closing statements.
All right.
I'm going to give you 5 minutes each for a closing statement.
Oh, I just wanted to take 10 seconds to respond.
Never mind. That'll come from you. 5 minutes. Since you actually went first, which wants to go first?
Go first.
All right, thank you. I'd like to thank all of you for your time here today. I recognize that I am not literally a carbon-cut copy of the Austrian School of Economics or a Ron Paul clone. I'm a creative person who has experience dealing with the banking system and with the political system. And the basis for my candidacy is very simple. The reorganization of the banking system, Obama's impeachment, and the discussion amongst us to build specific projects, which would require specific use of the federal government's power, Article 1, Section 8. If you agree with those three things, then you are supportive of my campaign, and I ask you to volunteer to help so that I can have ballot access when that time comes up next month. There are other things worth discussing, which in my view are secondary or tertiary, which I may not have mastery of all of, but I will work on over time. But the point is, who are we going up against? Peter King. What are his politics? His politics are that of power, of police state. Okay, and he is willing to sacrifice liberty for security. And in my view, that's wrong. That's wrong, because it undermines the very essence of our Republican system. That is, the citizenry is responsible for the politics and the future of the country. I have a specific sort of background dealing with this thing over many years, and if you choose, please support my candidacy. If you do not, I understand. But again, I don't think you're going to find a better candidate than myself with the knowledge of banking and foreign policy. I do. Okay.
Adam, we're
What else
running,
to
we're
share?
gonna run out of
What
time.
else to share? Well, let's talk about something that's close and dear to my heart. That is NASA and science. I ran into one of Gigi's comrades many years ago. I ran a congressional campaign in Texas. I ran as Steve Sussman, who was a Libertarian running. I was running a different, a Democratic campaign at the time. The candidate was Keisha Rogers, to save the space program. But the idea being that we would reorganize our system based on a new frontier. And that is the challenge of Apollo, to go back to the moon, to industrial development, and to build the necessary infrastructure to make that happen, commercial, civilian, government, and so on. Now, there are very real implications of this kind of challenge. One, we have 7 billion people in the world. How are we going to feed them? How are we going to clothe them? All right? What type of organization do you have to accomplish those physical requirements? With atomic power, with nuclear power, you have those potentialities. Isotopes are very useful in various things, which are a byproduct of atomic power system. So these things are, I think, very important and necessary for us to make at the forefront. And I realize for a lot of folks that might be scared of that sort of thing, because of the experience here in Shore and Wade River. Well, for the record, it was crazy. The shutting down of that plant was crazy. There might have been problems with the construction, but you're still paying for it today. It was complete, it was working, and it was operational. And yet the environmentalism, the populism at the time, crushed the political leadership that was there, and people capitulated. And now, as a result, it's just one of many things that we've lost. So I think that if we choose various things that have a high challenge in science, history, and culture, our politics are going to be very, very good, and we're going to satisfy the needs of the future in the same way that our forefathers, Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, Franklin Roosevelt, did in their time. Now, granted, we're viewing them now from our current situation. We have different prejudices. We have different opinions. But you cannot dispute the fact that they were successful. Why? Because you're here as a result of their success and their principles.
Dan, the final word, 5 minutes.
Okay, I thank you all for you for listening to what I had to have to say. If you don't agree with everything I said, I respect that, but I certainly hope you do, because that's why I'm running. We have a problem in this country where the government is finally starting to overstep the bound, interfering in people's liberties, in people's lives, and that's why I am running today. We need to get our act together. We need to understand the fact that liberties need to be preserved, okay? We do not need the government there to say what we can or we cannot do. We need to be broken at the airport. We need to have a camera watching us. We need to have a camera in our house because the mother just had, wife just had a baby, and we need to watch the wife and if she's a good parent. This all interferes with basic common law. The common law says you have a right to property, you have a right to your freedom, your right to privacy, your right to own a second and right to bear arms. It's all about a community issue. We do not need this overreaching big government to get involved into our lives and distort everything, okay? This is, if the Founding Fathers were here today, if Benjamin Franklin was here today, and Thomas Jefferson and George Washington was here today, they would be absolutely appalled about where we are today. I would like to read to you a quote from this book that I'm reading right now by Tom Woods, called Nullification. And there's a part in the book where he says, a lot of people were taken by the American politician and promised that he and his party would totally eliminate states' rights altogether. Since for us the state is, as such is only a form, but the essential is its content, the nation, the people.